The sun was shining brightly over the small town of Greenville. It was a normal day, just like any other. Kids were playing in their yards, adults were going about their daily routines, and everything seemed peaceful. Little did they know that this day would change the course of human history forever. 8-year-old Sarah Johnson skipped out of her house, her blonde pigtails bouncing with each step. She clutched her favorite teddy bear in one hand and a jump rope in the other. Her mother, Linda, watched from the porch with a smile on her face. "Don't go too far, sweetie," Linda called out. Sarah turned and waved, her gap-toothed grin lighting up her freckled face. "I won't, Mommy," she replied cheerfully. Sarah began to jump rope on the sidewalk in front of her house. She was getting better at it every day and was determined to beat her record of 50 jumps in a row. As she jumped, she started to sing a nursery rhyme. 1, 2, buckle my shoe. 3, 4, open the door. Suddenly, a strange sound filled the air. It was unlike anything Sarah had ever heard before. It was a low, rumbling noise that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Sarah stopped jumping and looked up at the sky, confused. The sound grew louder, and then Sarah saw it. A massive spaceship, bigger than anything she had ever imagined, was descending from the clouds. It was dark and menacing, with strange symbols etched on its side. Sarah stood frozen, her mouth open in shock. All around her, people were coming out of their houses, pointing at the sky and shouting. Cars screeched to a halt in the middle of the road. The peaceful day had turned into chaos in a matter of seconds. Linda ran out of the house, her eyes wide with fear. "Sarah," she screamed. "Sarah, come inside now." But before Sarah could move, a beam of light shot down from the spaceship. It enveloped her, lifting her off the ground. Sarah dropped her teddy bear and jump rope, reaching out towards her mother. "Mommy," she cried, tears streaming down her face. "Mommy, help me." Linda ran towards her daughter, her arms outstretched. But it was too late. Sarah was being pulled up towards the spaceship, the beam of light carrying her higher and higher. "No," Linda screamed, falling to her knees on the sidewalk. "Please, no, not my baby." Sarah's father, Tom, came running out of the house. He saw his daughter disappearing into the spaceship and let out a roar of anger and despair. He tried to run after the ship, as if he could somehow reach it and bring Sarah back. Neighbors gathered around, some trying to comfort Linda and Tom, others staring at the sky in disbelief. The spaceship, now carrying Sarah inside, began to move away. It picked up speed, becoming smaller and smaller until it was just a dot in the sky. And then, in the blink of an eye, it was gone. The town was left in stunned silence. The only sounds were Linda's sobs and the distant wail of approaching sirens. Hours passed. The police came, asked questions, and left. News crews arrived, filling the street with vans and cameras. But no one had any answers. What had happened? Who had taken Sarah? And why? As night fell, a message appeared on every screen across the planet. Television sets, computers, smartphones, all of them suddenly showed the same image. It was a creature unlike anything humans had ever seen before. It had gray skin, large black eyes, and no visible mouth. When it spoke, its words appeared as text below its image. "People of Earth," the message read, "we are the Galactic Empire. We have taken one of your young as a specimen for study. The one you call Sarah Johnson no longer exists in the form you knew. Her body has been disassembled for analysis. This is the natural order of the universe. Advanced species study lesser ones. Resistance is futile. This concludes our communication." The message disappeared as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving billions of humans in shock and horror. In Greenville, Linda collapsed into Tom's arms, both of them weeping uncontrollably. Their neighbors stood around them, tears in their eyes, unsure of what to do or say. As the news spread across the globe, a wave of grief and anger swept over humanity. In that moment, something changed. Humans were no longer alone in the universe, but they were also no longer safe. and they were no longer willing to be seen as lesser. In the coming days, weeks, and months, this single act of cruelty would unite humanity like never before. The Galactic Empire had made a grave mistake. They had awakened a sleeping giant, and Earth was about to show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. The news of Sarah's death spread like wildfire across the globe. Within hours, every person on Earth knew about the alien abduction and the cruel fate of the innocent child. The world was in shock, but that shock quickly turned to anger. In New York City, thousands of people gathered in Times Square. They held candles and pictures of Sarah. Some cried, others shouted in anger. A man climbed onto a platform and spoke to the crowd. "We cannot let this stand," he yelled. "We must fight back." The crowd cheered and chanted, "For Sarah, for Earth." Similar scenes played out in cities all over the world. In Paris, the Eiffel Tower was lit up with Sarah's face. In Tokyo, millions of people wore black armbands to show their grief. In Rio de Janeiro, a giant mural of Sarah appeared overnight on the side of a building. World leaders scrambled to respond. The United Nations called an emergency meeting. Representatives from every country rushed to New York. They met in a large room, their faces grim and determined. A Secretary General stood up to speak. "We face the greatest threat in human history," he said, "but we must not give in to fear. We must stand united." As the meeting went on, scientists and military experts from around the world were already working on a plan. They gathered in secret locations, sharing information and ideas. Dr. Emily Chen, the brilliant physicist from China, had a breakthrough. She found a way to detect the alien ship's energy signatures. "We can track them now," she told her colleagues. "We can find their home world." Meanwhile, in a military base in Russia, General Alexei Volkov was developing new weapons. He combined human technology with what they had learned from the alien ship's visit. "We will be ready for them next time," he said, his eyes fierce. Volunteers poured in from every corner of the earth. Young and old, rich and poor, people of all races and religions. They all wanted to help. Training camps were set up in deserts, jungles, and Arctic regions. People learned to fight, to fly spaceships, to use advanced technology. In Africa, a young woman named Amara showed exceptional skill in piloting simulated spaceships. "I used to fly crop dusters," she said. "Now I'll fly among the stars." In a lab in India, a team of engineers worked day and night to build better, faster ships. They named their first prototype Sarah's Hope. The United Nations created a new organization, Earth's Vengeance. Its mission was simple: to protect Earth and make sure no other child would suffer Sarah's fate. Admiral Jane Chen, a respected naval officer from the United States, was chosen to lead Earth's Vengeance. She stood before the UN General Assembly, her voice strong and clear. "We have been attacked," she said. "We have been told we are lesser beings, but we will show the galaxy who we truly are. We are humanity. We are strong. We are united. And we will not be defeated." The assembly erupted in cheers and applause. Admiral Chen's words were broadcast around the world. In homes, in offices, in streets and squares, people listened and felt hope rising in their hearts. In Greenville, Sarah's parents, Linda and Tom Johnson, watched the speech on their TV. Tears rolled down their cheeks, but there was a new light in their eyes. "She's right," Tom said, holding Linda's hand. "We have to fight." Linda nodded. "For Sarah," she whispered, "for all the children of Earth." As night fell around the world, the stars seemed to shine brighter than ever before. But now, when people looked up at the sky, they didn't feel small or afraid. They felt determined. They felt ready. In factories and shipyards, in labs and training grounds, work continued around the clock. Spaceships were built, weapons were forged, and soldiers were trained. Earth was preparing for war. The Galactic Empire had thought humans were weak. They had thought Earth was an easy target. But they were wrong. They had awakened a sleeping giant, a planet full of people who would fight with everything they had. As Admiral Chen looked out at the vast fleet being assembled, she smiled grimly. "Get ready, Galactic Empire," she said to herself. "Earth is coming for you." The stage was set. The greatest adventure in human history was about to begin, and it all started because of one little girl named Sarah, whose life would change the destiny of an entire planet. The world had never seen anything like it. Every country, every city, every person was focused on one goal: getting ready for the fight against the Galactic Empire. The Great Preparation, as people called it, was in full swing. In the Australian outback, a massive shipyard stretched as far as the eye could see. Thousands of workers moved like ants, building spaceships day and night. The sound of welding and hammering never stopped. Jake, a former car mechanic, wiped sweat from his forehead as he worked on an engine. "Never thought I'd be building spaceships," he said to his friend. "But here we are, saving the world." Meanwhile, in the forests of Brazil, soldiers trained in new battle tactics. They learned to fight in zero gravity and how to use energy weapons. Captain Maria Silva watched her troops with pride. "Again," she shouted, "the Empire won't give us second chances." Under the ice in Antarctica, scientists worked on secret weapons. Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka held up a small device. "This," he said, "can disable their shields. It's our ace in the hole." His team cheered. Every breakthrough brought them closer to being ready. In orbit around Earth, the first of the new space stations was almost complete. It would serve as a launching point for the fleet. Astronauts floated in space, carefully assembling the giant structure. Sarah's parents, Linda and Tom Johnson, had thrown themselves into the effort. They couldn't bring their daughter back, but they could help protect other children. Linda worked in a communications center, coordinating between different groups. "We need more power for the eastern sector," she said into her headset. "Reroute from Section 7. Tom had joined a construction team. He helped build the massive engines that would power the battleships. Every bolt he tightened was done with thoughts of Sarah. In a hidden base in the Himalayas, Admiral Jane Chen stood before a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots showed possible locations of the Empire's homeworld. "We'll find them," she said to her advisors, "and when we do, we'll be ready." The preparation wasn't just about weapons and ships. Earth's best minds worked on other problems too. How would they feed a fleet of millions? How would they keep the ships running for years in space? In labs around the world, scientists created new foods that could last for decades. Engineers designed recycling systems that could turn waste back into useful materials. Nothing was wasted. Every resource was precious. Schools changed their curriculums. Kids now learned about alien biology and spacecraft mechanics alongside math and history. Universities offered degrees in cynopolitics and interstellar navigation. Even entertainment changed. Movies and video games were all about space battles and alien worlds. They helped people get used to the idea of life beyond Earth. But it wasn't all work. People found time to come together, to support each other. In parks and town squares, they held star parties. They looked up at the night sky, pointing out constellations and wondering what was out there. Old enemies became friends as countries shared their resources and knowledge. The old borders seemed less important now. Everyone was a citizen of Earth first. As months passed, the fleet grew. Sleek fighters, massive carriers, and powerful battleships filled the shipyards. Each one was a marvel of human engineering and determination. Finally, after 2 years of non-stop work, Admiral Chen made an announcement. She stood before cameras, broadcasting to every screen on Earth. "My fellow Earthlings," she said, her voice strong and clear. "The day has come. Our fleet is ready. 700,000 ships, crewed by the bravest souls of our planet." A cheer went up around the world. In homes and public squares, people hugged and cried. The moment they had been waiting for had arrived. "Tomorrow," Admiral Chen continued, "we launch. We will find the Empire. We will show them the strength of humanity. And we will have justice for Sarah and for Earth." The cheers grew louder. Fireworks lit up the sky in every city. It was a celebration, but also a solemn moment. Everyone knew the dangers ahead. As night fell, people looked up at the stars one last time from an Earth at peace. Tomorrow, they would take the fight to the galaxy. The great preparation was over. The great journey was about to begin. In Greenville, Linda and Tom Johnson stood in their yard, arms around each other. They looked up at the sky, tears in their eyes. "Be proud of us, Sarah," Linda whispered. "We're coming for you." The stage was set. Humanity was ready. The greatest battle in Earth's history was about to begin. The day had finally arrived. The sun rose on a world holding its breath. Today, humanity would take its first steps into the stars as a united force. In spaceports around the globe, massive ships stood ready. Their hulls gleamed in the morning light, each one a testament to human determination and skill. Crowds gathered to watch, their faces a mix of excitement and fear. At the main launch site in Kenya, near the equator, the flagship of the fleet waited. It was called Earth's Vengeance, a name that echoed humanity's mission. The ship was huge, bigger than any building ever made on Earth. Admiral Jane Chen stood at the base of the ship, looking up at its towering form. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. Millions would follow her into the unknown. Nearby, Sarah's parents, Linda and Tom Johnson, prepared to board. They had been chosen as civilian representatives, a symbol of why Earth was fighting. Tom held Linda's hand tight. "For Sarah," he whispered. Linda nodded, tears in her eyes. For all of us, all around the world, similar scenes played out. Families said goodbye to their loved ones. Friends hugged one last time. Children waved flags and cheered as their parents boarded the ships. In New York, an old veteran saluted as young soldiers marched past. In Tokyo, a group of monks prayed for the fleet's safety. In Rio de Janeiro, people danced in the streets, celebrating the human spirit. As the hour approached, Admiral Chen stepped onto a platform. Cameras broadcasted her image to every corner of the Earth. She looked directly into the nearest one, her gaze steady and strong. "People of Earth," she began, her voice clear and determined. "Today, we embark on the greatest journey in human history. We go not just for vengeance, but for justice. Not just for Sarah, but for all of humanity." Around the world, people listened in silence, hanging on every word. "We have been challenged," Chen continued. "We have been insulted. We have been hurt. But we are not broken. We are humanity. We are strong. We are united. And today we rise." A cheer went up from the crowd, echoed by millions around the globe. "To the Galactic Empire, I say this. You have made a grave mistake. You thought us weak. You thought us primitive. You were wrong. We are coming, and we bring with us the fire of 7 billion souls." The cheers grew louder. In every city, every village, people shouted their support. "And to my fellow humans," Chen said, her voice softening slightly, "I make this promise. We will not fail. We will return, and we will make the galaxy a safer place for all our children." With that, she turned and walked towards the ship. The crowd's cheers turned to a respectful silence as they watched her go. All around the world, crew members boarded their ships. Final checks were made. Systems hummed to life. In mission control centers, technicians watched their screens carefully. Everything had to be perfect. The countdown began. 10. People held their breath. 9. Children clutched their parents' hands. 8. Priests and imams offered final prayers. 7. Soldiers saluted. 6. Lovers shared one last kiss. 5. Engineers crossed their fingers. 4. Pilots strapped themselves in. 3. The engines roared to life. 2. The ground shook. 1. The world watched. Launch. With a sound like thunder, the ships began to rise. Slowly at first, then faster and faster. They climbed into the sky, breaking through the clouds, reaching for the stars. On the ground, people cheered and cried. They waved flags and hugged each other. It was a moment no one would ever forget. Inside Earth's vengeance, Admiral Chen watched as her homeworld grew smaller. The blue marble of Earth, so beautiful, so fragile, slowly receded. Plot course for the first jump point, she ordered. As the fleet assembled in orbit, final preparations were made. Then, with a flash of light, the ships disappeared into hyperspace. The launch was complete. Earth had taken its first step into a larger universe. The hunt for the Galactic Empire had begun. Back on Earth, in a small town called Greenville, a memorial stood where Sarah had once played. Fresh flowers lay at its base, placed there by neighbors and friends. As night fell, people gathered around it. They lit candles and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth's fleet was flying, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of an entire planet. The greatest adventure in human history had begun, and it all started because of one little girl named Sarah, whose life would change the destiny of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. The vast emptiness of space stretched out before Earth's fleet. For weeks, they had traveled through the dark void, each day bringing them closer to their target. On the bridge of Earth's vengeance, Admiral Jane Chen stood tall, her eyes fixed on the main screen. "Any sign of Empire activity?" she asked, her voice steady. A young officer named Raj looked up from his console. "Nothing yet, Admiral. But we're approaching the coordinates Dr. Chen provided." Jane nodded. The coordinates, based on the energy signature of the ship that took Sarah, were their best guess at finding the Empire. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the bridge. "Contact," Raj shouted. Multiple ships detected. Jane's heart raced, but her face remained calm. "On screen," she ordered. The main screen lit up, showing a cluster of sleek alien ships. They were unlike anything humans had ever seen before. Their hulls seemed to shimmer as if they weren't fully solid. "Empire ships?" Jane asked. "Confirmed, Admiral," Raj replied. "Energy signatures match." Jane took a deep breath. This was it, the moment they had prepared for. "Open a channel," she said. "Let's see if they'll talk." For a tense moment, there was silence. Then, a face appeared on the screen. It was just like the alien that had announced Sarah's death. Gray skin, large black eyes, no visible mouth. "Humans," the alien's voice echoed through the bridge, cold and emotionless. "You are far from your home. Explain your presence." Jane stepped forward. "I am Admiral Jane Chen of Earth. We've come seeking justice for the child you murdered and to ensure the safety of our planet." The alien's eyes narrowed. "The specimen. That is why you've come all this way." "How?" "Primitive." Anger flashed in Jane's eyes, but she kept her voice steady. "That specimen was a child named Sarah. She had a family, a future. You took that away." "Irrelevant," the alien replied. "Lower species are meant to be studied. This is the natural order." On a lower deck of Earth's vengeance, Sarah's parents, Linda and Tom, listened to the exchange. Tears streamed down Linda's face. Tom held her close, his jaw clenched in anger. Back on the bridge, Jane's voice grew steel. "We are not a lower species. We are humanity. And we're here to show you exactly what that means." With a nod to Raj, Jane cut the communication. She turned to her crew, determination in her eyes. "Battle stations," she ordered. "Let's show them what humans can do." Across the fleet, klaxons sounded. Pilots rushed to their fighters. Gunners manned their stations. The massive ships began to move into attack formation. The Empire ships, caught off guard by the humans' aggression, scrambled to respond. But Earth's fleet had the element of surprise. "Fire," Jane commanded. Beams of energy lanced out from Earth's ships, striking the nearest Empire vessel. Its shimmering hull flickered, then failed. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash. The battle had begun. Fighter craft poured out of Earth's carriers, swarming towards the enemy. The sky lit up with explosions and energy beams. On Earth's vengeance, Linda and Tom watched the battle unfold on a screen. Despite their fear, they felt a sense of pride. This was for Sarah, and for all the children of Earth. The fight raged on. Earth's ships, built with reverse-engineered alien tech and human ingenuity, proved more than a match for the Empire. One by one, the alien vessels fell. Admiral Chen watched the battle with a mix of pride and sadness. They were winning, but at a cost. She saw Earth ships explode, knowing each one carried brave men and women. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the last Empire ship turned to flee. "Should we pursue, Admiral?" Raj asked. Jane shook her head. "No, let them go. Let them carry a message back to their leaders." As the Empire ship disappeared into hyperspace, a cheer went up across the fleet. They had done it. They had faced the Galactic Empire and won. But Jane knew this was just the beginning. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. "Send word to Earth," she ordered. Tell them we've had our first victory." As the message was sent, Jane looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was the Empire's home world. And now they knew. Humans were coming. The Galactic Empire had made a grave mistake. They had awoken a sleeping giant, and now they would face the full fury of humanity. This was just the first step in a long journey, but it was a step that would echo across the galaxy. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. The news of Earth's first victory spread quickly through the human fleet. Cheers echoed through the ships, but Admiral Jane Chen knew the real fight was yet to come. The Galactic Empire wouldn't take this defeat lightly. For days, the fleet pushed deeper into Empire space. They encountered more resistance, but nothing they couldn't handle. Then, on the seventh day, everything changed. Alarms blared across Earth's vengeance. Raj, the young officer, looked up from his console with wide eyes. "Admiral, massive energy signatures detected. It's the Empire's main fleet." Jane's heart raced, but her voice remained calm. "Show me." The main screen lit up, and a collective gasp went through the bridge. Thousands of Empire ships filled the view, more than they had ever seen before. At the center was a massive vessel, easily 10 times the size of Earth's vengeance. "That must be their flagship," Jane said, her eyes narrowing. Suddenly, a transmission came through. The alien commander's face appeared on screen, its black eyes cold and angry. "Humans," it said, "you have trespassed in our territory and destroyed our ships. This ends now. Surrender or be annihilated." Jane stood tall, facing the screen. "We will not surrender. We fight for our home, for our future, and for Sarah. We are humanity, and we do not bow to tyrants." The alien's eyes narrowed. "Then you will die." The screen went dark, and Jane turned to her crew. "This is it, people. The battle we've prepared for. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. For Earth. For Earth." The crew echoed. Across the human fleet, pilots scrambled to their fighters. Gunners manned their stations. Engineers prepared for emergency repairs. In the medical bay of Earth's vengeance, Linda and Tom Johnson prepared to help with the wounded. They shared a quick hug before getting to work. "For Sarah," Linda whispered. "For Sarah," Tom echoed. The space between the two fleets lit up with weapons fire. Beams of energy crisscrossed the void. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. Earth's fighters swarmed around the larger Empire ships, their agility making them hard to hit. But the Empire's superior numbers began to tell. Human ships exploded one after another. On the bridge of Earth's vengeance, Jane watched the battle unfold. Her mind raced, looking for a way to turn the tide. "Admiral," Raj called out. The Empire flagship is charging its main weapon. Energy readings are off the charts. Jane's eyes widened. If that weapon fired, it could wipe out a huge portion of their fleet. She had to do something. All ships, focus fire on the Empire flagship, she ordered. We need to take it out before it can fire. The human fleet responded, concentrating their attack on the massive ship, but its shields were too strong. Hours passed. The battle raged on. Both sides took heavy losses. The space around them was filled with debris and the remains of destroyed ships. Jane stood on the bridge, her uniform dirty and torn. She had to make a decision. They couldn't keep fighting like this. Raj, she said, I need you to plot a course directly for the Empire flagship. Get us as close as you can. Raj looked shocked. But Admiral, at that range. I know, Jane said. Do it. As Earth's vengeance moved closer to the Empire flagship, Jane opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We're going to attempt a direct assault on the enemy flagship. Cover us as best you can. The human ships rallied, forming a protective screen around Earth's vengeance. Fighters flew suicide runs to take out Empire guns. Closer and closer they came. The Empire flagship loomed large on the screen. Explosions rocked Earth's vengeance, but still they pressed on. Now, Jane shouted, fire everything we've got. Earth's vengeance unleashed a barrage of weapons fire, point-blank into the Empire flagship. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a crack appeared in the massive ship's hull. It spread, growing larger. Keep firing, Jane ordered. The crack widened, and suddenly, the Empire flagship began to break apart. Explosions rippled across its surface. A cheer went up on the bridge of Earth's vengeance. The Empire flagship was destroyed. Seeing their leader fall, the remaining Empire ships began to retreat. The tide of battle had turned. As the last Empire ship disappeared into hyperspace, a stunned silence fell over the human fleet. Then, slowly, cheers began to rise. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had won the great battle. Jane sank into her chair, exhausted but triumphant. They had won, but at a great cost. Many ships and brave souls had been lost. As the fleet regrouped, Jane knew their journey wasn't over. The Empire was wounded, but not defeated. There would be more battles to come. But for now, they had proven something important. Humanity was not to be underestimated. They had faced the greatest threat in there and emerged victorious. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter as the human fleet prepared for their next move. The galaxy would never be the same again. #HumanChild. Killed by Galactic Empire. Earth strikes back with 700,000 battleships. The journey back to Earth seemed longer than the voyage out. Admiral Jane Chen stood on the bridge of Earth's vengeance, watching the blue marble of her home grow larger on the view screen. The fleet had been through so much. They were coming home victorious, but the cost had been high. As they entered Earth's orbit, a cheer went up from the crew. They had done it. They had faced the Galactic Empire and won. The landing was broadcast live across the planet. People gathered in streets and squares, watching giant screens with bated breath. As the first ships touched down, the world erupted in celebration. Earth's vengeance landed in the same field in Kenya where it had taken off months ago. As the ramp lowered, Admiral Chen led her crew out. They were met by a roaring crowd, waving flags and throwing flowers. Among the crowd were Sarah's parents, Linda and Tom Johnson. They had been part of the medical team on Earth's vengeance, helping save countless lives during the battle. Now, they stood hand in hand, tears in their eyes as they watched the heroes return. World leaders gathered to welcome the fleet home. The President of the United Nations stepped forward to greet Admiral Chen. "Admiral," she said, shaking Jane's hand, "on behalf of all humanity, thank you. You and your brave crew have saved our world." Jane nodded solemnly. "We all did our part," she said, "but the fight isn't over. The empire is weakened, not defeated. In the days that followed, the world came together like never before. The threat of the empire had united humanity in a way nothing else could. A global memorial was built in Sarah's honor. It stood in the heart of New York City, a towering structure of glass and steel that seemed to reach for the stars. At its base was a simple plaque that read, "For Sarah, and for all the children of Earth, may they inherit a galaxy at peace." Linda and Tom stood before the memorial, holding each other close. "She would have loved this," Linda said softly. Tom nodded. "She always wanted to see the stars. Now she's part of them." As Earth celebrated, work continued. The knowledge gained from the war was put to use improving life on the planet. New technologies developed for space travel were adapted for everyday use. Clean energy, advanced medicine, faster transportation. The world was changing rapidly. But the biggest change was in how humanity saw itself. No longer were they alone in the universe. They were part of a larger galactic community, and they were determined to make their mark. Admiral Chen, now hailed as a hero, spoke before the United Nations. "We have proven ourselves on the battlefield," she said. "Now we must prove ourselves in peace. We have the opportunity to shape the future of the galaxy. Let us do so with wisdom and compassion." Her words resonated across the world. Earth began reaching out to other alien races, ones who had also suffered under the Empire's rule. Alliances were formed, trade agreements signed. Slowly but surely, Earth was becoming a major player in galactic politics. New laws were put in place to prevent any race from dominating others as the Empire had done. Earth led the way in establishing a galactic council, where all species would have a voice. Years passed. The scars of war began to heal. The first generation of children born after the war grew up looking at the stars not with fear, but with wonder and excitement. On the 10th anniversary of the victory, a new ship was launched. It was called the Sarah, named after the little girl whose tragic death had set everything in motion. But this ship wasn't built for war. It was an exploration vessel, designed to seek out new life and new civilizations. As the Sarah lifted off, carrying a crew of humans and aliens working together, Admiral Chen, now retired, watched from the ground. She smiled, thinking of how far they had come. The galaxy was entering a new era, an era of peace, of cooperation, of exploration. And humanity, once thought of as primitive by the Empire, was leading the way. As night fell on Earth, people looked up at the stars. But now, instead of seeing a dark and threatening void, they saw possibility. They saw hope. They saw a future brighter than they had ever imagined. And somewhere out there, among the countless stars, the spirit of a little girl named Sarah smiled down on the world she had helped save.